I've recently hit over 1,000 days porn free, which would be something like surviving 3 no-nut Novembers. So in this video, I'm going to give you from bro to bro exactly how I overcame a 10 plus year gooning addiction so that you know exactly how to do it too. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Christian. I've been helping young men break free from the bad habits for the past 3 or so years now. Before that, I was able to overcome some of my own bad habits such as vaping, gooning, and playing video games all day, every day. And I make these videos because I enjoy it. So the time of recording this is currently November 11. So by the time I release it, it will likely be Thursday or Tuesday. So it could be the 13th when you're watching this or the 18th when you're watching this, which means you're either absolutely smashing No Nut November, but you're hating it, or you've already relapsed like 3 or 4 times. And in this video, as I said, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how to stop relapsing every 3 days. And then when you do relapse, having a 4-day fapathon for the next 30 days or whatever. So the first thing I would highly recommend is when it comes to No Nut November, we're basically all aiming for, how many days are in November? 30? Correct me if I'm wrong, but a 30-day streak. But you're aiming for this streak, and that's what No Nut November is. Go 30 days without touching your penis. So for the sake of November, this is a good goal to have, and we should all aim for these 30 days. But outside of No Nut November and going into December, which you all know what that's for. But if you truly want to stop gooning for good, then this thing called the streak. This thing here is actually the thing that is holding you back from achieving those 30, 60, 69, 90, and even whatever I'm up to, which is like 1,000. I think it's like 1,200. I'll put a screenshot up if I haven't already. But caring so much about the streak is literally what is holding you back from achieving complete freedom over gooning and basically even any other bad habit. So what does this mean? This means that you should have the goal and you should completely obsess over the goal of having complete control over yourself and your urges. And maybe you do aim for, maybe you want to get to 100 days or 300 days or whatever. But I would advise against this. And here's the reason why. Because I was like you, and I used to obsess over, let's see if I can go 2 weeks. Let's see if I can go 4 weeks. Let's see if I can go, 3 months without gooning. But the moment I actually stopped caring about how many days I went without fapping, that was when I completely gained control over my gooning and over my porn. And that was like 1,000, whatever, how many days it's been. That's how long ago that was. That's when I stopped caring about the streak. Because here's what happens when you care about the streak. There's this thing known as your self-worth, which basically just means how you feel about yourself, like how good you feel about yourself. And when that is tied to your streak, then what happens when you lose your streak? So let's say streak, self-worth. So when your self-worth is attached to your streak of getting, let's just say 90 days, then what happens when you relapse? On day 89 even, let's say you relapse on day 89, what happens? To make this easier mathematically, I'm going to say 100. What happens when you relapse on day 99 out of 100? You're going to absolutely hate yourself. You're going to absolutely hate yourself. You're going to see yourself as a loser. And there's this quote that I absolutely love, which basically says, the more you self-hate, the more you self-abuse. Which means that the more you hate yourself, the more you're going to self-sabotage. And gooning is a form of self-sabotage. So if you care so much about the streak, and this is known as perfection, you're trying to be a perfectionist. If you care so much about being a perfectionist, when you essentially relapse on day 99 out of 100, which is 99%, which is pretty fucking good. But if the only way you're ever happy is if you get 100%, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to hate yourself. And guess what happens when you hate yourself? You're just going to go on this 5-6 day fapathon because you're like, I'm back on day 0. Might as well make the most of it. And you open up Pornhub like 5 times in the next 24 hours. And I know that's what you do. So here's what to do instead of focusing on the streak. We should focus on making progress. So instead of tying our sense of self-worth or just how good we feel about ourselves to achieving a certain amount of days without watching porn or without gooning or without I don't know what you kids do these days, subscribe on OnlyFans. But what we should do, or what I would better recommend, because this is what worked for me, and this is what's also worked for the guys that I work closely with, and who I coach on this, is it's much better when you focus on simply making progress. And here's what I mean by that. So we all know that focusing on the streak means that whether you relapse on day 1 or day 1001, you're going to feel like a piece of shit. What focusing on making progress does is there's this Japanese term, it's called Kaizen. And what Kaizen means, it basically means continuous, relentless improvement. And a cliche way to say this is 1% better every day, which means that every day, regardless of whether you succeed or you fail, you want to see how can you improve? How can you get better? So this means that even on the days in which you fail or you relapse, you can figure out a way to relentlessly improve. And this leads me into a very important point. So failing and winning is a choice. Failing and winning is a choice. And what do I mean by that? So you failing or you messing something up or you making a mistake is just inevitable. That's just part of life. You'll always make mistakes. But it's what you do after making that mistake which determines whether you are a loser or a winner. Because failing and winning is a choice. Now here's what I mean by that. When you win, you obviously win. Pretty straightforward. But when you fail, you have a choice. Do you turn into a loser or do you turn into a winner? Because here's the thing. If you fail and you give up, then what do you stay as? A loser. But if you fail and you go again, then you're giving yourself a chance to be a winner. And then here's how you become a winner after failure. You grab the lesson. So now what does this mean? That means you are always a winner, because either you win, which means you win, or you fail and grab the lesson, which means you win. Because here's what happens when you grab the lesson. You have now learned you have one extra piece of data or one extra piece of knowledge. You've become wiser on how to not fail next time. Because do you think that I got to 1,000 plus days free without ever failing? No. Do you want to know how I got to 1,000 days free? I failed probably 1,000 times trying to quit this bad habit. But here's what happened. Every time I failed, I understood why did I fail. And basically, like, this video is me telling you how I failed. The streak is one of those ways in which I always kept failing because I just obsessed over the streak. Because what happens when you obsess over something? Your brain just pulls you towards that thing. You know it. When you buy a new car, let's say you just bought a Toyota, what do you see everywhere? Toyotas. That's all you see on the road. So when you focus so much about the streak, which is more so you focusing so much on not failing, what is your brain thinking about all the time? Failing. And then what do? You fail. And not only do you fail because failing is inevitable, it's not something you have to be scared of, but you don't turn that failing into a winner, because what do you see yourself as? A failure. And when you see yourself as something, you show up as it, which goes down to this concept known as be, do, have. So be means, like, if you see yourself as a failure, then you will do things that failures do, which means you will have the outcomes that failures have. So if you want to see yourself as a winner, what winners do is, even if they fail, they turn it into a win because they see themselves as a winner, which means what do? They turn their failures into wins by grabbing the lesson, which means they end up getting a 1,000 plus day porn-free streak, which you shouldn't even care about. The only reason I know, and this screenshot is from like a month ago or 4 weeks ago or something. The only time I ever know what my streak is when I'm making a video like this, or I'm coaching my clients and they ask me, how many days are you? And then I go check it. I rarely check my streak. I probably check it 3 or 4 times a year, only when someone asks. That's how much you should not care about the streak. That's how much you shouldn't care about the streak. I didn't even know when I hit over 1,000 days or 365 days. I just checked it and I realized, oh, that's more than a year. Go me. Okay, we keep focusing. So stop thinking about the streak. You should focus on making progress. And here's what that looks like. So let's say you have a few months here. You have month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 months. And let's just say that every month has 28 days. They don't. Obviously they don't, but 28 is 7 times 4. So that's just 4 weeks. So let's say we have 6 4-week cycles. And in cycle 1 or month 1, you go 1 day without gooning. You're a horny fuck. So what you want to do is now you want to just beat this 1 day. See if you can do 5 next time, or you just beat it. And you might be thinking, well, isn't this the same thing as tracking the streak? Well, not really, because here's what a streak is. A streak is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, day 9. Oh, fuck, I'm a loser. Here's what focusing on making progress is. It's, okay, this month looked like that. You had 3 X's. Next month, let's see if you can do that. Now you have 2 X's. Then you have 0 X's. So you shouldn't care about how many days in a row you go. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how many days in a row you go. It's completely irrelevant. What's more important is how many days in a cycle that you go without it. So these 5 days, which means these 23 days that you fapped, could have been 23 days in a row, or they could have been spread out. It does not matter. What you're trying to do when you're making progress is see, in a 28-day cycle, can I get better? Regardless of whether that's in a row or not. So you might go 1, you might go 5, then the next month you might go 10, then the next month you might go 15. Then what does this mean? This means you've failed 27 times here. You've failed 23 times here. You've failed 18 times here. And you've failed 13 times here. And if someone adds this up, so that's like 50, 68, 71, 81, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 81 days in which you failed. Which means that's 81 learning lessons. Which means you've become 81 times more wiser. So if you think about this as a video game, you've gained 81 wisdom points. So guess what happens on month 5? You're not just going to increase 5 times, you're probably going to increase 10 times. And now you've gone the whole 28 days without gooning. And now here's what happens. That's a month. Now, instead of gooning every month, you're gooning every 2 months, then every 3 months, then every 6 months. And to the point now, you don't even have to think about it. It's not even something, it doesn't even feel like a full-time job anymore because you're not focusing so much on it. You're just in your habit tracker. Did you goon today? Did you not? Yes, no. At the end of the month, you see how much it is. See if you can beat it next month. In your habit tracker, you might reach a goal. You say, okay, let's see if I can do 5. And then you did 5. Okay, let's see if I can up it to 10. And then you did 10. Let's see if I can up it to 15. You did 14. Okay, let's see if you can hit 15 again. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And then we will get to the point where you don't even care. So don't focus so much on the number. Just focus on, okay, I relapsed. Now what? Figure out why. Grab the lesson. That is a wisdom point to learning how to not relapse next time. The next thing I would recommend is just optimize your environment. What I mean by that, and I think this is something James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, where he says, I think he says this, if not, correct me, but he says, make good habits easy to do and make your bad habits hard to do. Very simple. And this is what optimizing your environment is. You want to make it as hard as possible, almost impossible, to goon or to lead or to be tempted to goon. And the best way to figure out how to optimize your environment is to focus on the lesson, because obviously when you goon, there was something around you that tempted you to goon. So then what do? You mitigate that thing. You remove that thing. So first of all, you think about the obvious things to start. So what's one way to prevent you from gooning? Well, what you would do, or what I did and what I would recommend, is first of all, you install a blocker, a porn blocker or website blocker that blocks all the websites. The one that I've used is called Remojo. If you know a better one, use it. But this is the one I use, and it worked. So just use that. It blocks everything. You can't access it. And it makes it very frustrating because you can't access it, but that's what we want to do. We want to make it impossible to access. But here's the thing, you will still find ways to access it. And I'll give you an example. So I had this blocker, Remojo, on my laptop and on my phone. But one night, I remembered, oh my gosh, I have an iPod Touch. And I don't know if they make iPod Touches anymore, but for those of you who weren't around when they were around. So basically it just looks like an iPhone 6, but you can't call people on it. And I had this iPod Touch probably since I was 12 or 13. And I hadn't used it for, 5-6 years. And this would have been 3-4 years ago, or however, like 1,000 days is, 3 or 4 years ago. So I hadn't used it in ages because I didn't need to, because now I had a phone. And one night, what I ended up doing is, I can't access it on my phone, can't access it on my laptop, but I have an iPod Touch. So I just hotspotted my iPod Touch. So then the next morning, after I had my post-nut clarity, I figured, okay, let's go and install Remojo on my iPod Touch. And guess what? Because it was such an old device, this app didn't work. So you couldn't install it. So here's what I did. I made it hard as possible to access. What did I do? I grabbed my iPod Touch. I drained the battery so that in order to even turn on my iPod Touch, I had to charge it first, which would probably take 15 minutes because the battery on it was already shocking because it was 10 years old or whatever. Put it in my wardrobe, in a box, in a very inconvenient place that I had to get a stool to stand on top of the box. Put the bottom of the box in this container that needed a lock in order to open it. And then I put the lock in another inconvenient place in my room so that at 2 a.m., 11 p.m., whatever, when I was tempted, I couldn't go on my phone, couldn't go on my laptop. But what I could go on was my iPod Touch. And in order to get my iPod Touch, first of all, I had to find the key. Then I had to go into my wardrobe, get a stool, make some noise in the middle of the night to get my box down, unlock the iPod Touch. And guess what? Even when I had my iPod Touch, guess what I had to do? I had to charge it for 15 minutes until it turned on. By then, I couldn't be bothered because it was just so much effort to access. And this is what I mean by making it almost impossible to access. And the only way I figured out that that was a way that I could access it was because I failed by accessing it one time. So then, knowing that, okay, that's a way I can access it, I just make it hard to access it next time. So this is why grabbing the lesson after you fail is so important, because every time you relapse, there is always a reason. And what you want to do after you relapse is find like what I will call the root cause. The root cause. What was the thing that led to it? What was the thing that led to you relapsing? So you go backwards. Like what was the first chain in this chain reaction? It was this. And then you did this. So you mitigate this. Then you did this. Then you mitigate this. Then you did this. Then you mitigate this. Until all the things are mitigated. So that you just can't relapse. It's very simple. It's not easy to do, but it's very simple. So the first thing when it comes to optimizing your environment is you just make it absolutely impossible to access. And then whenever you find a new way to access it, mitigate that so that you can't access it again. And obviously there will still be a 1% chance that you can access it, but you just want to stack all the cards in your favor as much as possible. And obviously this isn't a long-term solution because you can't just live in the world with your eyes closed, but this is a temporary solution that you use right now until you gain your self-control. This will help you gain your self-control without having to use so much brain power on trying to resist accessing it. If you make it impossible to access, you don't have to use as much brain power trying not to access it, which means you have more brain power to level up your self-control in the process. That's what I mean by this. So first of all, make it impossible to access. And then the second thing is make it impossible to get tempted. So these days, Instagram and TikTok and all these things are basically softcore porn websites. Because as a guy, what content do you tend to just look at the most? The thing you look at the most are these just random chicks who just have their tits out or have their ass out. Yeah. They're at the gym and they're doing RDLs or something. And the camera, they're doing their RDLs or something. They're doing their RDLs. And where's the camera? The camera's here. What are you looking at? Their ass. You're looking at their ass. And then because that's the thing that grabs your attention, what does the algorithm feed you? More of that content. The point of that is that's just not helping you. That's just not helping you at all. It's not making it easier for you. It's making it harder because you're just getting hornier and hornier. And there's nothing wrong with being horny, which is what I'm going to explain in a moment. But we want to mitigate you being tempted to eventually go on Pornhub because you've seen one chick with her tits out on Instagram or on TikTok, which then half an hour leads to you going into the bathroom or something and even like going on Reddit. So what I did is I set up all my social medias, all my internet, so that it was impossible to access, impossible to get tempted. So install blockers, and then on your Instagram, TikTok, and all these things. First thing is unfollow whenever you see a chick post on a story thirst traps, or you see a chick post a photo of a thirst trap, here's what you do. You unfollow them. So that you don't see that anymore. Because you'll see girls who go to the gym and all that, and they'll post like their progress pics. And you know, this isn't a progress pic. This is a thirst trap. This is a thirst trap. This chick is looking for attention. She wants a guy to DM her and tell her how hot she is. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're the cuck who's in her DMs. But what you want to start doing is unfollowing all these chicks who are posting all these thirst traps. And you probably already know some girls you grew up with or whatever who post these thirst traps. Unfollow them. It's nothing personal. Just unfollow them. They're not going to care. You're not going to care. If they do care, who cares? Because this is more important. Your future of not being able to goon is more important for your future wife, or your future girl, than this random Instagram chick who probably doesn't even know you. And if she does, she probably doesn't even respect you. So why are you following her? Which leads me to the other thing, which just go through your following list. So on Instagram or TikTok, just go through your following, and any girl that you know or any girl that comes up in your list, just ask yourself a question. Do I personally know this girl? If the answer is no, unfollow. Because if you personally don't know this girl, then what is she likely? She's likely just some model that you follow, some Instagram model that you follow just because she has big tits. And that's not helping you. So you want to unfollow her. So that's question number one. Do I know this girl? No, unfollow. Which means the only people you're probably going to be following is like your mum, your sister, or I don't know, that's probably it. That's probably it. Or some girls you genuinely do know personally because you hang out with them. Maybe they're in your friendship group or things along those lines, and they're not a degenerate. That's question number one. Do I know them personally? No. And then for the girls that remain, you ask yourself a second question, which is, am I inspired by you? If the only thing about them that inspires you is how big their tits are, then no, they don't inspire you. Unfollow them. But if they're doing something cool and you genuinely respect them and you genuinely get value from them and from their content or things along those lines, such as there's some awesome businesswomen out there who post very good marketing content, I follow them. But if they were to start posting some thirst traps, even though they post really good marketing content, you know what they're going to get? Big fat unfollow. So step one is basically just go through your following list. Does this girl post thirst traps? Unfollow. Does this girl inspire me? No. Unfollow. And then whenever you see a girl who still remained in that list, post a thirst trap, unfollow. So that's step one. Step two is just scroll through your feed for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And whenever you see a thirst trap, you go to the 3 dots in the bottom corner and you click not interested. And you just let the algorithm know. I don't want to see this type of content anymore. And you do that literally just for 3 minutes, and that stuff's not going to pop up in your algorithm anymore. You're just going to be seeing, I don't know, guys at the gym racism, whatever Instagram's used for these days. And that's all your Instagram content's going to be. And I don't know, that's arguably better than half-naked chicks and softcore porn. And then just an ongoing thing is whenever it pops up again in your algorithm, now this just takes discipline, is you just click not interested again, because Instagram will, or the algorithm will just tempt you and say, hey, are you still interested in this? No, I am not interested in this anymore, because my future of self-control is important for my future son. Because if I don't have self-control, what type of girl are you going to go for? These Instagram models who have daddy issues and all these things, and they're not going to raise your son very well. So think about what's most important. So that's the second thing I would recommend. The first thing is stop focusing on the streak, focus on grabbing the lesson. The second thing is optimizing your environment. So make it hard to access and hard to get tempted. Install blockers, things along these lines, and then unfollow and not interest anything or any chick or anything that's basically softcore porn. And you know what softcore porn is. I don't have to tell you. Don't bullshit yourself. Be completely honest in this. You know when a chick is posting softcore porn, and you know when you're looking for it. So whenever you start looking for it, not interested. Actually, not when you start looking for it, but when you're not looking for it, such as right now. Even do this right now. Go on Instagram, not interested. Go on TikTok, not interested. It'll clear your Instagram up in literally 2 minutes. It only takes 2 minutes to do this, because I've done this before. The next thing we need to upgrade are your beliefs. So there's this framework that I absolutely love, which means your thoughts control your emotions, which control your actions, which control your outcomes. It's basically be, do, have. So what this means is sometimes if you're not getting the outcomes you want in life, it's because you're not taking a certain action, which comes down to a way that you feel. Maybe you feel unmotivated, which comes down to a thought that you're having. So if we talk about porn, for example, the reason why you don't have control over your porn or control over your gooning is because you keep gooning, which comes down to a way that you feel. Maybe you feel lonely, which comes down to a thought that you're having because maybe you think you're a loser. So you thinking that you're a loser makes you feel lonely, which means, well, pixels are easier to get than a girl, so I'm going to jack off. And now you're a gooner. You're a wanker. There's nothing you can do about it. But you can change your thoughts. So what you need to do now is you likely see yourself as a gooner. Why? Because you goon. You likely see yourself as a loser. Why? Because you goon. You likely see yourself as someone who has zero self-control. Why? Because you currently don't have much self-control. So what do you need to start doing? Especially when it's not true, you need to have the belief of, I'm not a gooner. Or I don't goon. And yes, it's that simple. Because there's this thing called your self-image, which basically is just the way that you see yourself. It is going to be much easier for you to goon if you currently see yourself as a gooner. It is going to be much harder for you to goon because if you don't see yourself as a gooner, because it's like, I don't do that anymore. And yes, guess what? Even when you tell yourself, I don't goon, you're still going to goon, but you're not going to goon as often. Which means you're going to make more progress, which means eventually that progress will be 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and now you have self-control. So I highly recommend stop seeing yourself as a gooner and start adopting this belief of I don't goon. Because most of us, we currently have this belief of I'm trying to stop gooning. So let me give you an analogy. So you have two guys. One guy is I'm trying to stop, and this is guy 2, I don't goon. So at the moment, this is probably your belief and this is my belief. Like my belief is I don't do this. So whenever I get the urge to do it, I don't do it because I don't do it. I am not the type of person who does this. I used to be the type of person who does this. And you might think, well, these are the same thing, aren't they? Well, they're not. They're very similar, but there's actually a huge difference. The huge difference is this word trying. Because this word trying, it's a bit up in the air. You're not completely certain. There's a bit of uncertainty in who you are. I'm trying to stop, which means I'll probably fail, I'll give up, blah, 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 blah. Whereas this, it's a hard no. It's like, I don't do this. Think about this. Let's say we have two dudes and they're both trying to stop drinking, for example. They're both trying to stop drinking, and they're at a club or they're at a party or they're at a bar. So let's replace this word with drinking. And one of the mates comes up to them with 2 drinks and says, "Boys, bought you a drink. Here's your drink." Dude number one says, "No, thank you. I'm trying to stop drinking." And dude number 2 says, "I don't drink." Which dude is going to give into the drink sooner than the other one? The one who is a bit unsure that says, "I'm trying to stop drinking." Why? Because he's trying to stop drinking. And then his friend's going to be like, "Yeah, but one drink's not going to kill you. Come on, man. You're being a bit too strict. Don't worry about that. Like, here's a drink. Just have one drink and then we won't drink for the rest of the night. Just have one drink with me." Why? Because here's the thing about your self-image, which is basically what you believe about yourself, is what you believe about yourself is also what you believe other people believe about you. So if you think you're a loser, you think that everyone else thinks you're a loser. Think that everyone else thinks that you're a loser. So if you think that you're someone who's somewhat undisciplined because you're trying to stop, then everyone else is basically going to see you as this undisciplined person, which means it's going to be much easier to twist your arm into having the drink, which is just going to spiral, and now you're just back at day 0. What about this guy, this absolute Chad who says, "I don't drink"? Everyone else at the party is just going to respect it. They're just going to know, guys, don't offer, Dave a drink because he just doesn't drink. But subconsciously, they're going to be thinking, well, Ben over here, he's trying to drink, which means he does drink. He's just trying not to, but he does drink. So he can probably tempt them into drinking. But this man, no one's going to mess with him because he doesn't drink. No one's going to offer him or tempt him into a drink. Why? Because he doesn't drink. So you need to have this mindset of, I don't goon. And you have to be ruthless about it. I don't goon. It's a hard no. I don't do this anymore. It's not who I am. Because you having the belief of, I'm trying to stop, blah, 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 blah. It's not helping you because it's up in the air. It's not as concrete as this. Now, another important belief that I'd recommend you adopt, and this is the most important belief that you need to adopt when it comes to overcoming any bad habit, but in particularly gooning. And when I first heard this, it was the most mind-blowing thing because how did I not think about this sooner? How did this not cross my mind sooner? Because right now, there's this thing called association, which means that when this thing happens, what do you believe the next thing has to happen, essentially? So right now, you likely have an association between horniness and jacking off, that whenever I am horny means I need to jack off. You have that association. If I'm horny, that means I have to jack off. That's just what has to happen. If I'm horny, I have to get rid of it. I have to get rid of the horniness. Why? Why? Why do you have to do that? Because here's the thing. Here's the mind-blowing thing. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to jack off because you're horny. Let's say you're hungry. Do you have to eat? How many times have you been hungry, but you've been locked in, you've been focused on something? Maybe you're studying and you're like, I'll just get this task done. Or you're working on whatever it is and you think, I'll just get this task done. Or maybe you're at work and you just can't eat because you're working and you just think, I'll just eat after. And then what happens when you get the task done? You're no longer hungry. The hunger's gone away. It's the same thing with horniness. So what we need to do is we need to detach the association between horniness and jacking off. And a belief that really helped me was basically I would tell myself that me being horny does not mean I have to jack off. Horniness is just part of my natural masculine sexual urges, and I don't have to do anything about it. Don't have to do anything about it. And yes, what does that mean? That means you just sit with a stiffy until it goes away. Because I've spoken to people about this and I've introduced this belief to them and they're like, what, you just let it stay there? That's just so weird. That's just so uncomfortable. Yeah, but you don't have to. You don't have to jack off. You don't have to get rid of it. Just let it be. And here's what happens when you do that. You become more comfortable in your masculine energy. Because what is a huge part of your masculine energy? Your horniness. Because what essentially is horniness? Horniness is this energy that you have, this huge boost in basically testosterone and energy, which is basically going to force you to conquer whatever you conquer so that you can achieve this, but with a real woman. That's basically what it is. Yeah. So instead of wasting this energy with your hand, why don't you use this energy to do something productive? Like go to the gym. Use this huge amount of energy, because you have this huge amount of energy, use it at the gym. Hit a punching bag, boxing bag, do some work. Use this energy to do some work. Go for a run. Do something productive with it. Because when you remove the association that horniness no longer means jacking off, then that means horniness means whatever the fuck you want it to mean. It can mean absolutely nothing. Because for me, it means absolutely nothing. If you heard about this thing known as meditation, what you learn in meditation is that you're sitting down. So like this is you're sitting down and you're basically just observing whatever's happening in your body. So you might have this thought that pops around and you're told to basically picture everything as clouds. So you might have this thought, that's a cloud. This emotion, that's a cloud. This thing, that's a cloud. And clouds are just like moving through the sky. And your job is not to form opinions about these clouds or to participate with these clouds. It's just to observe these clouds. Horniness is just a cloud. You don't have to participate in it. You don't have to participate in it, because guess what? Because you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions. And horniness, that's an emotion, that's a feeling. And you are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. Just like you are not your clothes. I have this top, but I am not this top. I have horniness, but I am not my horniness. Which means that when we get horny, we can understand that, I get to decide what to do with it, because I have it, but I am not it. Which means I get to decide what I do with it. I have this clothes, I have this t-shirt, or I have this top, but I am not this top. Because I have this top, I get to decide whether I wear it or whether I wear another top. Super simple. So you being horny, you get to decide whether you do this or whether you do something else. Now, this is obviously easier said than done, because when you're horny, you have all this energy and you do want to just get rid of it, because it can be an overwhelming amount of energy, just like in your balls, really. So here's a practical tip on how to actually remove it. But this is something you can actually start doing next time you get horny so that it disappears. And this is basically a form of meditation, which is something I'd recommend you start doing every day, but I'll explain that in a sec. So what you do is you can close your eyes, or you don't have to close your eyes. Picture a red cloud or a red bit of dust around wherever you feel the horniness, which is usually just in your balls. So you've got like this huge big dust cloud, this red dust cloud just in your balls, because that's where all that energy is concentrated. That's where you feel everything. And then what you want to do is you take in a breath and then you breathe out. And then every time you breathe out, picture this dust cloud spreading throughout your body. And then you take a breath in, you take a breath out, and now maybe it's going into your legs and up into your belly. You're breathing in, breathing out. Now it's spreading further till it's getting into your fingertips, getting into your head, and spreading out further and further. And now this energy is just spread nicely throughout your body, instead of it being concentrated so much just on your dick. Then your stiffy's going to go away and you're not going to be horny anymore. But the bonus of this is you've now transported that energy, you've moved it into the rest of your body, which now means the rest of your body has all this available, essentially masculine sexual energy in it that you can use productively to go to the gym or to sit down and do some work. So before I said, whenever you feel horny, turn that energy into something productive. And this is a practical step for you to do before that. So you get horny, do this little breathing exercise where you're picturing this cloud and you're spreading it throughout your body with each breath. And you just visualize this, like close your eyes. Okay, it's spread. Okay, it's spread. And you just visualize it and it will literally happen. And then once it's been spread or you're happy, then go and do something productive. And then maybe in 5 minutes, you become horny again. sit down for a minute, do it again. And just a fun fact, this is how you beat any emotion. So like if you're feeling angry, you might feel tenseness in your fists. If you want to get rid of that anger, you can just do the same thing. Breathe, anger, moving up my arm into my body. Sadness, I don't know, you might feel it in your throat. Again, spreading, it's going away. That's how you do it. That's a quick little tip on how to overcome your horniness. And then a good way to practice that every day is obviously practice that whenever you get horny. So picturing that dust cloud and it's spreading away with every breath, which will decrease your stiffy. And then you have this available energy to use for something productive. And a second thing is just, I'd recommend as soon as you wake up, meditate for 10 minutes every day. And here is what meditation is. Because lots of you, when I said meditation, you're like, that's a bit gay. That's a bit weird. I've tried that before in school and there was just some random person speaking and I had no idea what was going on. I'll teach you exactly how to meditate. You sit down on your bed, on a chair, on the floor, wherever you want. Sit down and you do nothing. Set a timer for 10 minutes and you do nothing. That's it. Now, to make it easier, you can focus on your breath. Because here's the thing. The reason why lots of us don't meditate or we don't even try it is because, again, going back to this thing about winning and failing, we're perfectionists. And we think that because we can't focus for 10 minutes or even 10 seconds, we think that that means we should not meditate. But how the fuck do you get good at something? By practicing, by failing at it over and over again. Because think about this, I've meditated for like 3 years and I sit down for 10 minutes and my mind still wanders. You know whose mind doesn't wander when they sit down for 10 minutes? A monk. And they've been practicing meditation for what, 30 years every day for like 4 hours. Their mind would still wander every now and then. Because meditation isn't about keeping a still mind. It's about returning a wandering mind. And here's what it is. So here's the cycle of meditation. So basically you sit down and you're supposed to be meditating. So let's say, and a simple way to meditate is just focus on breath. So this is like step one. You focus on breath and then your mind will wander. And then you're like, oh shit, my mind has wandered. I'm supposed to be meditating or focusing on my breath. So you become aware of your mind wandering. So your mind wanders, you don't realize it yet, and then you realize that your mind's wandered, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be meditating. And then you focus back on your breath. And then each of these is just like one cycle, or what we would say, one rep, one bicep curl for your meditation muscle. So the goal isn't to stay focused all the time, it's to focus on your breath. Eventually your mind will wander, and you'll realize your mind wanders, and then you're like, okay, focus on my breath again. That's a rep. You've just become better at meditation, which means if you absolutely suck at meditation, you're going to be getting like 60 reps every 2 minutes or something, which means you're getting better and better and better and better. And why is this so important? Well, first of all, you're practicing this breathing of focusing on your breath, which is important for that dust cloud method I just shared with you. But when you sit in silence and you basically just be bored for 10 minutes, what happens is you're becoming used to being bored. Because when do you tend to jack off? When you're bored, when you have nothing else to do, because you might have to leave to catch up with your friend in 20 minutes and you're like, well, what do I do? Well, what can I do to kill time for 20 minutes? What takes 20 minutes? I'll just jack off. But if you become used to just sitting in silence and allowing yourself to be bored, which yes, is going to be uncomfortable, but if you literally practiced being bored, it's going to be easier for you to not to jack off when you're bored. So I would recommend as soon as you wake up, first thing, 10 minutes, sit in silence, do nothing. Don't put headphones in, go on YouTube and say 10-minute YouTube tutorial or 10-minute guided meditation. No, just sit down, no music, nothing. Turn phone upside down, put phone somewhere else. Sit down, nothing around you, and do nothing. You can close your eyes, you can have them open if you want, but closing your eyes will make it easier to focus on your breath. But just do nothing for 10 minutes. And yes, you're going to suck at it, but over time, you'll become better at sitting in silence and better at being bored, which will help you overcome your gooning. Now, the final thing I'll end with when it comes to defeating No Nut November and defeating goon for good, it all goes down to this thing called dopamine, which you've probably heard of this thing called dopamine before. It's basically this chemical in your body that motivates you to do certain things. The way it determines whether it tells you to do this or that is it will always tell you to do the thing that gives you the most pleasure with the least amount of effort. So an example for this with gooning is it is much easier to go on your phone, and it's also 10 times probably more pleasurable to go on your phone and goon than it is to go out in the real world and meet up with a girl and get a chance to sleep with her. Much easier because that's much harder, and it might be 10 times less pleasurable because you can only see one, whereas on your phone you can see as many as you want. You can see as many as you want in the span of a minute. So what we want to do is you want our brain to be more motivated to do this than it is to goon. And the way you do that is you stack your life in a certain way that makes your brain more motivated to do harder things than it is to do easier things. And I'm not going to go super in depth on this because I've gone more in depth on this in other videos, which you can go and find. There's a really good one called Why Chasing Pleasure Will Always Lead to Pain. And basically this is what I'm going to talk about right now is when you chase pleasure, or when you chase short-term pleasure, or when you do things that are known as instant gratification activities and you're always doing them, these hyper-stimulating things where when you're doing them, they feel good, they give you a hyper-stimulating amount of pleasure, but afterwards you feel like shit. So gooning feels good when you're doing it, post-nut clarity, you feel like shit. Doing drugs, huge high, but then a huge come down afterwards. All these things, even just scrolling on Instagram, fun when you're doing it, but afterwards you feel like a loser because you've just wasted 2 or 3 hours. Those are called instant gratification activities. We want to decrease the amount of those that we do, which yes, easier said than done. But another thing we want to do in simultaneously to that, which makes it easier to decrease these, is you want to increase the amount of delayed gratification activities, which are things that feel hard when we're doing them, or they suck when we're doing them, but they suck when we're doing them, but they feel good afterwards. So these are things like the gym. It's really hard to do it. It takes a lot of motivation, first of all, to motivate yourself to go to the gym. And then the workout itself is really hard, but then afterwards you feel awesome. You feel like a winner. Another one is a cold shower. Cold shower absolutely sucks. And it will never get to a point where it doesn't suck. A cold shower will suck every time that you do it, but afterwards, for all the guys who have done them before, or who have done a cold shower before, or an ice bath, how do you feel afterwards? You feel absolutely invincible. You feel absolutely invincible, don't you? So that's an example of a delayed gratification activity. So when you stack your life in a way where you're intentionally seeking out hard things and intentionally avoiding hyper-stimulating things, then what happens is your life by default becomes pleasurable. Waking up in the morning and seeing that it's sunny, or even seeing that it's raining outside. Today it's raining. It's cleared up. It's actually cleared up a bit before, but it's been raining during this video, and I'm happy. I'm loving it because I'm going to go to the gym. And at the moment I'm working out from home and I'll be outside, and it'll probably be raining when I'm at the gym today. And that's going to be one of the most pleasurable experiences of my day today, is going out there in the rain. That's going to be so fun for me, and doing squats because it's leg day. Doing squats in the rain is going to be so pleasurable. But 3-4 years ago, that would have been the most undesirable thing for me to do. But now, because I've stacked my life in a way that I don't really do anything pleasurable, because I've removed porn, I've removed video games, I don't really watch TV or movies or things along these lines. And all I really do is make these videos here and work more on my business. So I basically just do hard, boring, consistent work. And I go to the gym, or I exercise, or I'll catch up with a friend where we'll usually exercise, or something like that, or we'll be spending time with my family, or with my partner, with her. And guess what? Me doing that, being outside, brings me so much pleasure where I don't even have the thought of, oh, I should go on Pornhub. Because what I'm saying here is make life fun by default. Because the reason why you feel like you need to watch porn and do any other bad habit that you are trying to overcome is because your life by default is boring. Because first of all, you haven't become comfortable with boredom. But second of all you do is hyper-stimulating stuff. You eat shit. You eat hyper-sugary junk food. You play video games or watch Netflix or YouTube all day. You goon when you're not doing those things, or you're drinking, or all these things. Those things are just hyper-pleasurable and hyper-stimulating, and even more stimulating than our brain was naturally built to handle. Like, no wonder a normal woman, or doing a workout, or going for a walk, or just sitting in silence is absolutely boring, because what is your brain used to? All these other things. Of course it's going to crave that. Of course normal life is going to be boring. But I promise you, when you remove those things, life just as it is becomes just as fun as all those hyper-stimulating things. But you will only ever understand that once you go through it. So intentionally make yourself hard. It goes down to this old cycle, which is hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. When you're doing all these hyper-stimulating activities, you are in the position in that cycle of good times create weak men, because hyper-stimulating activities such as porn, that's good times. What do good times lead to? Weak men, which is why right now you feel like a loser. You're maybe not getting the results in life that you want, because your good times have led to you becoming a weaker version of yourself, a weaker version of the man you can probably see yourself as being. You're just not him yet. And guess what that's going to lead to? That's going to lead to harder times. You're going to lead to harder times, because you'll get to 30 years old, still addicted to porn. You're going to have no hope with them. And you'll also get to 30 years old, still addicted to porn, and you're going to have no discipline. You're going to have no hope with work, with finances, with your health, with the gym. You're not going to be able to stay consistent. You'll go to the gym for 3 weeks, and then you won't go for 2 months. And then you'll be stuck in hard times. So what we can either do is we can either intentionally give ourselves hard times by doing hard things, or we can give ourselves future hard times by doing good, easy things, which will then lead to us being a weaker person who just creates hard times, or creates a harder life when it comes to external circumstances. So you can either intentionally create a harder life, a life of discipline, a life of doing difficult, uncomfortable things, such as waking up early, having cold showers, going to the gym, sitting in silence for 10 minutes a day. That's hard. Do those things, and abstaining from instant gratification activities. You can either intentionally make your life hard by doing those things, or you can not do those things and do hyper-stimulating things, which will lead to a harder life anyways. So if life is going to be hard one way or another, whether you orchestrate it or it comes as a result of you being a loser, you might as well be the one in control. You might as well orchestrate it. You might as well be the one who makes it hard for yourself intentionally by doing things that you know are good for you. These delayed gratification activities. So that's exactly how I've become over 1,000 days porn free. And just to summarize, the first step is your mindset things. So don't focus on the streak so much. Focus on making progress, and most importantly, grabbing the lessons every time you fail. A good way to not fail is, first of all, start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't do that anymore. You're not someone who's trying to stop, but you're someone who just doesn't do it. Another mental thought or belief to adopt is to remove the association between horniness and jacking off. That horniness is just a natural sexual urge that you get as a man. It's part of having testosterone. You don't have to do anything about it. And a practical hack for that is doing that cloud activity where you're breathing in, out, that cloud is dispersing, dispersing, dispersing. Practice meditation every day to get good at that, and sitting in silence, allowing yourself to be bored. Third thing to make it easier for yourself was to optimize your environment. So setting up blockers, making it as hard as possible to access, and making it as hard as possible to be tempted. So set up blockers and optimize your Instagram following, your Instagram feed, YouTube, TikTok, everything, so that there are no thirst traps. Unfollow all the girls who post thirst traps. And then the final thing which we talked about, intentionally make life hard, which will then just make life fun by default, to the point where you don't even need to do these things anymore. I'll just share with you one final thing, which is basically me sharing to you what life is like now, or to overcome a common misconception that you might have about now that I haven't touched it for 1,000 days. I will let you know that no matter how many days you have gone without gooning or without any bad habit, for example, you will still get cravings and you will still want to do it. And that is okay. There is nothing wrong with you for having desires because, as we said, especially sexual desire is just a part of being, first of all, human, but also part of being a man. So there's nothing wrong with you for being tempted or for having the desire for wanting to goon or for doing absolutely anything. But as I said before, you are not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but you're not them. You have clothes, but you are not your clothes. So even today, I'm over 1,000 days porn free. And every now and then, I'll say like once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, I might have the desire or the thought might pop into my head that it would be nice to goon. But through removing the association from jacking off, from being horny and gooning, by building the identity of I don't goon, by learning how to essentially be comfortable with however I feel through these breathing exercises, it comes to a point where it's just a thought that pops into my head and then that's it. It goes away after 10 seconds because it's like, okay, this is just a thought. I don't have to do anything about it. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this basically to prepare you. And first of all, so that you realize there's nothing wrong with you because you will never get to a point where you never have the desire anymore. You will never get to that point. It is impossible. You will always have the desire. And the goal shouldn't be to remove the desire altogether. It's to have control over yourself in spite of the desires. It's essentially to be able to have this thing right in front of you and not touch it. And that's the goal. So this No Nut November, just set the intention. Pick one of those things, either optimizing your environment or optimizing your beliefs about the things or whatever it might be, one of those 3 or 4 things that I shared. Just pick one this No Nut November. See if you can focus on that. And then in December, see if you can implement another thing. January, another thing. And just get better each and every month. And then you'll get to a point where you don't even think about it. Where you don't even care about the streak. Where you've gotten to my point and where the only time you check the streak is when you're making a video like this or someone asks you, how long have you gone? And you're like, oh, I don't know. I'm going to go check. And that is where I want you to get to. And if you follow these simple steps in this video, I promise you, it won't be easy and it won't be today, but you will get there through consistently showing up, because you will consistently show up because you are no longer a perfectionist. You no longer care about the streak, because if you fail and don't try again, you stay as a loser and you are not a loser. So you will relapse, but every time you relapse, just keep going. Just keep going, because that's what consistency is. Consistency isn't how many days in a row have you gone. Consistency is, are you still going? Are you still playing? Are you still doing your best? Are you still telling yourself, I don't goon, especially after you goon? Now, I'm going to be making a full-on in-depth course about exactly how to overcome porn, because there's only so much you can fit into just one YouTube video. So feel free to subscribe and all of that if you want to keep up to date with when that's coming out and things on those lines. But in the meantime, you can look into the description. I have a free community down there and a bunch of other resources you can look at, both free and paid. And those are all things that can help you when it comes to overcoming porn, overcoming drinking, or any other bad habit that you might have, whether it's playing video games all day or just scrolling on your phone and reducing your screen time and all of these things. So feel free, go down to the link in the description. There's things you can pay for, things you can get for free. And that's it from me. I'll see you in the next video.